All praises.
Okay, so I'm not muted. All praises. Yeah, told me oh. All right, shalom, shalom.
Shalom, Mark.
Shalom, shalom, everybody.
All praises. So yeah, um, prayerfully everybody is doing well today. Um, yeah, just gonna dig into the Parsha. Um, it's part 2A of Parsha Toldot. So this particular part of the Parsha is not. It's a little bit off the beaten path of what we've generally been doing as far as just line by line going through the Parsha, but it's kind of a setup to the rest of this Parsha. So yeah, um, still Genesis 25:19 through 28:9, Malachi 1:1 through 2:7 is our Haftarah portion, and then our Brit Kadashah portion is Romans 9:1 through 31. So, um, yeah, without further ado, we can get started.
Yeah, let's go. Let's get into it.
All praises.
Y'all was getting into it already, but it was getting good. So I said, "No, we got to pick this up. We got to do something with this."
All praises.
And your popcorn face.
All right. So today's part of the Parsha will deal with some of the things that operate in the background in our lives. So remember, this Parsha is titled Toldot, which means generations. We will see how certain circumstances and environments can bring out certain things in you that may have been passed down from generations before you, whether told or right, whether good or bad. Right. So basically, we we'll take a look. We're gonna see how you knowing what's in you, and or in some cases knowing what's not in you, can be a deal breaker and where you're gonna end up with the Father, right? So here's a question: what people group was Abraham and his family often regarded as? And then I'm gonna give y'all a hint. Hebrew is not the answer that I'm looking for. Chaldeans is a very good one. Yes, especially Abraham is regarded as this, but that's not the answer I'm looking for either.
Egyptians.
Not Egyptians. That's not what I'm looking for either.
No, okay. So
Not
I
what I'm looking
guess
for either.
I'm curious. What do you mean by regarded as? Like,
So
what are you defining that as?
their people were called. I mean, y'all answering with the right kinds of answers. It's just there's a specific term. It's very rarely used. So
People of the book? I'm not sure.
not quite. When we go there, y'all be like, oh
Okay,
yeah,
it's gonna be one of those
yep.
obviously like we should have got that.
Hmm. I don't know what that is. Not quite. But our phrases say no, no, no.
Would it be the place where he like was born in?
Perhaps. Well, we know that's what Ak was saying when he said Chaldeans, right? He was from Ur the Kasdim or Chaldeans.
Going to Quran.
Okay, Haran. I see what you doing there. Okay, but yeah, no, that's still not what I'm looking for. So we gonna see it on the next slide. Um, just a general question: do y'all think that knowing this information can contribute to our understanding of this parsha?
Hmm. Like just
Because it's
having further understanding, I'll be like hurt.
so like
I would say yes because it would add to the context,
okay,
context clarity.
absolutely. So all praises. So just keep in mind that this particular parsha is called Toldot, which means generations, right? So is it something that we can learn specifically about this?
Ibrahim.
That's a yeah, that's a yeah, and that's a told one, but yeah, no, not quite.
Okay.
Still not the answer that I'm looking for. It's not common, so don't beat yourself up about it.
Or costing.
So that's Chaldeans. Yeah.
Okay, you just have to tell us.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. So here's a question just for us to reflect on, because again, today is kind of like a meditation. It's a little bit off the Torah portion path, but it's still all connected and it's gonna help us understand the rest of this parsha and the next parsha. Well, really all of the next parshas in a greater light. But can where you come from, whether geographically or genetically, affect how you navigate certain situations?
Oh, for sure.
Certainly, like a lot of times the impoverished don't mind operating on a whole nother system because either that's all they've been exposed to or all they're accustomed to, and vice versa.
All praises.
Uh, calm because it's your foundation. Um, yeah, how you were raised basically is how you, like I was saying, is it's your how you were raised. Your foundation develops your mindset, how you think, um, what you do, how you act. All of that environment plays an important role in your development as a child and then becoming an adult.
All praises. All praises. So the people of Abraham, and we'll see. We'll see. Okay. All right. So the people of Abraham. So this is something that we were commanded to keep in mind, especially during our feast season offerings. So when we offered our first fruits, our bikurim offerings, we were to remember our beginnings as a people. We will see a little later why this is important to remember this during the offering of our first fruits. Okay, so Deuteronomy 26:1 says, and it shall be when you come into the land which Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you as an inheritance, and you possess it and dwell in it, that you shall take some of the first of all the fruits of the soil which you bring from your land that Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you, and shall put it in a basket and go to the place where Yahuwah your Elohim chooses to make his name dwell there. And you shall come to the one who is priest in those days and say to him, I shall declare today to Yahuwah your Elohim that I have come to the land which Yahuwah swore to our fathers to give us. And the priest shall take the basket from your hand and place it before the altar or before the slaughter place of Yahuwah your Elohim. And you shall answer and say before Yahuwah your Elohim, my father was a perishing or wandering Aramaean. So Aramaean was the word that I was looking for.
Oh yeah, I remember it now.
All praises. And he went down to Egypt or Mizraim and sojourned there with few men. And there he became a great nation, great, mighty, and numerous. So the question is, who was this verse referring to? Who is the wandering Arab man that they're talking about here?
My guess would be Abraham.
I would even think it was talking about your code too.
There we go. So
Because he went with 70.
there we go. So this is specifically talking about Yaakov, right? Specifically talking about Yaakov, right? And how their beginnings of as a nation came to take place when they went down into Egypt. He went there with few people, and now look, right? We've become this great nation, and we're gonna see that that's very connected to what takes place, right? With how they end up getting into their land, right? He came into this land, and now we've been delivered out of this land according to him staying true to the covenant that he made with our fathers. So this perishing or wandering Araman is specifically talking about Yaakov, and we know that this parsha is dealing a lot with Yaakov. So we don't see why all of this is important, and it's going to kind of lead us. Keeping this in mind is setting us up for the rest of the parsha. And just again, keep in mind that this is talking about generations, right? So it's a lesson that we can learn in it. So the word there for perishing is H6, abad, right? Sounds a lot like abad is that's spelled with the iron, right? The word for servant, but this is a different word. It's spelled with an olive, and it's abad. Okay, so it means properly to wander away. That is, lose oneself, by implication, to perish, causatively, to destroy, to break, destroy, um, destruction, not escape, fail, lose, right? Brown Drivers Briggs definition. Some of the things to pay attention to is we got to perish, to vanish, to go astray, to be destroyed, to perish, to be lost, to be strayed, to destroy, to blot out, to do away with, to cause to vanish, to give up, right? This is what he was considered. He was a perishing or a wandering Aramean, right? When he went into Mizraim, when he went into Egypt, this is what he was considered. But now look, so when we're offering this first fruit, now look what the Father has raised his name up to be, right? So, got some all praises. So just keep this in mind as we're continuing, because we're gonna see how this is something that is a detail that is a linchpin in this particular parsha. So we're gonna find out, well, what was it about Yaakov, and why are they saying, well, he was a wandering Aramean. Now he's been exalted to this, right? All praises.
Oh, praises. That's deep.
All praises. So, forgotten generation. So, just again, this was like it came as a like a meditation for us, right? Ecclesiastes 1:9. It says, "What has been is what shall be. What has been done is what shall be done. And there is no new matter under the sun. Is there a matter of which it is said, see, this is new? It was here already long ago. There is no remembrance of former ones, nor is there any remembrance of those that are to come by those who come later on." So there's something about forgetting what's in the generations before you,
That's deep.
right? Now keep in mind that this is Toldot, generations.
Mm-hmm. That's deep. Because even the strangers will say, when it comes to traveling, like, I'm here now, someone came before me, and somebody will come after me. If I don't know, or if I haven't walked the path of those that came before me, that means it dies with them, and I can't pass it on to those that come after me. It's deep.
I would say conversely as well. If I don't know the path of those who walked before me, and let's say it was a bad path, I could be definitely at risk of following in their footsteps and not making told decisions on how to separate myself from things that became their destruction. If Papa was a Rolling Stone, but I ain't know until after I had already rolled my own stones that he had a couple families on the other side of town. I'm not knowing that I'm following in his footsteps. I'm not knowing that I got brothers and sisters that I ain't never met before, but here I go spreading seed to or letting a man spread seed, being a woman, letting a man spread seed with me and not knowing, whatever, following the same footsteps that my mom did or something like that. If, just giving an example, it can work both ways. If, not knowing about those who came before you, you won't know like what could be your downfall. You don't know what your strengths could be. How did they do that was told in their life? What
Mhm.
was something that was their strength or their strong point or something?
Mhm.
Man, that's another part of that commanded confession. When you confess the sins not only of yourself but also of your fathers, like don't forget what took them off the path, so that you can actively avoid repeating that same thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
All praises. So just again, we in a active meditation, right? So as a side note, we know that Israel was warned many times about this, right? And they were given instructions on how to combat this. When we do not know where we are from, we cannot know where we are going. Now we know that in the Hebrew language, the word for future is to look behind. The root word is the verb to look back behind you. And then the opposite, right? So the word for looking in the past is to look in front of you, to look ahead. Because they believe if you want to know where you going, look at where you been. If you want to know where you been, well, look where you're going.
That's deep.
That is. That's why.
Mhm. So this is how one becomes a wanderer, right? When we looked at that, he was a wandering Arab man. When you get disconnected from the generations before you, what do you become? You become a quote unquote wanderer, right? This is the Papa was a Rolling Stone, right? This is become wanderer, right? So one can become a wanderer or they start to perish, right? Or they become lost. So you can lose yourself when you don't know where you come from or where you are going. This is why we were commanded to guard the commandments and instruct the next generation in the history of our people and what Elohim did for our fathers. This is why this is so important. Because without this, you're going to be lost.
Yeah. Straight up.
We were. We are.
Hmm. And when we look at our circumstances today,
Yeah.
Oh, can I bring that full circle to
Got the
today
mic.
since you?
hmm
You know what? Just to not to go too far off into left field or anything, but I find this extremely important, especially at this time, because of the things that are happening in current news right now. They're trying to, and when I say they, I literally mean our governing officials, are trying to disassociate us with the terrors and with the things that happened in our past
hmm
so that we literally become wanderers and have no foundation again. If we don't know what we had been through or have a distorted view of what we had been through, like we had already pointed out, it's possible and it's plausible to think that we will repeat it,
hmm
not knowing the detriment or the outcome of such situations,
hmm
not associating our current condition. Like you said, the word in Hebrew for a future is to look in the past, not associating our current condition with how we were treated back then, the foundation of how our existence was. Not seeing how that is a catalyst or the platform for which everything else is built on. And I think this is a perfect example or a perfect reason why this type of meditation is needed at this time. Because, specifically speaking, if we're told or if our children, they're trying to teach our children that enslavement was beneficial to Black people. That's literally what's going on right now. They're not teaching our children that artisans, metal workers, doctors, those who were physicians were already brought over here, agriculturalists, farmers, the people who already knew how to do those things because they were doing them already. Those were the people brought over here, but they're trying to make it as though, no, you only learned those skills once you stepped over on these shores. No, they were literally, our ancestors were literally brought over here because we knew how to do them and we could fare better outside doing those things. That's why our ancestors were brought over, not because we needed skills. No, we were brought over because we had skills already. And with them trying to distort our history, oh yeah, this type of meditation right here is absolutely needed. Tove bring out, and
All
like I said, I don't want to
praises.
veer too far off into left field, but bringing it to modern day, right now,
Mhm.
right today, making it relevant.
Mhm.
We need it.
All praises. It's right on time. Like we know there's a script say that there's a friend that sticks closer than a brother. Well, why does he stick closer than a brother? Because we done been through, like, nah, we've been through everything together. I know because we've gone through all the XYZ, this one here is trustworthy. This one here, that's the ace boom boom, right? There we go, right? So when you remove that, then what? How you gonna get those same results? And then that's what we kind of see when we dealing with our people, right? We have been so disassociated from the generation before us, what they went through, that it means nothing to us anymore. And so now, because it don't mean nothing, it's like we do all sorts. We fall for all sorts of okey dokes. All the and yeah, I'm gonna leave that there. But yeah, all praises. hmm hmm That's how self hate is perpetuated. hmm All praises. So Deuteronomy 32:7, right? We were again warned on how to combat this problem. He says, remember the days of old, consider the years of many generations, right? So many generations. You're supposed to be considering and thinking about these years of many generations. Ask your father and let him show you, your elders, and let them say to you, when the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the boundaries of the peoples according to the number of the children of Israel. For the portion of Yahuwah is his people, Yaakov his allotted inheritance. Now, so that means that Yaakov was what? This wandering Arab man was what? Chosen, right? He found him in a wilderness and in a wasted, howling desert. He encompassed him. He made him understand. So it's something that he's going to receive that's going to make him be just what he's going to say. He watched over him as the apple of his eye. So something about this understanding that he's going to give him and this understanding that Jacob receives that then causes him to be chosen or causes him to choose most high, right? But you're going to need this information. And the only way you get this information is if it's being passed down to you from generation to generation, right? You need to be mindful and remember where you came from, who your Elohim is, and what he did for your fathers. Because without that, you ain't nothing, right? Exodus 12:26. And it shall be when your children say to you, what does this service mean to you? Then you shall say, it is the Passover, the Pesach, slaughtering of Yahuwah, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Mizraim or Egypt, when he smote the Egyptians or Mizrites and delivered our households. And the people bowed their heads and did obeisance. So again, we see a formula of this is what's going to keep you connected to one another, and this is what's going to keep you connected to me, right? Don't forget these things. We know that the consequences of forgetting what is in the generations before us can be devastating to our future. This is why it was so important for us to remember that Yahuwah is the Elohim of our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Yaakov, right? How many times do we see that in the scripts where we was reminded of that? I, the Elohim of your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Why? Because it was something that he did in their generations and something that he promised in their generations that you supposed to remember. And I don't care if it was 400 years later, 4,000 years later. This carries weight. Don't forget this. And if you don't forget this, then you know and you understand that, oh, I can do it again. I'm here for you. You got the creator of all things on your side, right? I chose you. But if you forget that, you won't know who you are. Mm. Isaiah 1 and 2, right? Hear, O heavens, and listen, O earth, for Yahuwah has spoken. I have reared and brought up children, but they have transgressed against me. An ox knows his owner, and a donkey its master's crib. An ox knows where it come from. A donkey know where it come from. It know where it belong or where it's supposed to be. Mm-hmm.
That's where I get fed every day.
All praises. But Israel does not know. My people have not understood.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's a certain understanding that he gave to us, yet we still don't get it. Mm.
Mm. Come on, come on.
Alas, sinning nation, a people loaded with crookedness. Now that knowledge that he was supposed to give us was supposed to have the effect of making us upright, of straightening us, right? And it was supposed to remove our burdens, and here we are heavily burdened with crookedness. Mm. A seed of evildoers, sons acting corruptly. They have forsaken Yahuwah. They have provoked the set apart one of Israel. They went backward. Why should you be stricken anymore? You continue in apostasy. All the head is sick, and all the heart faints. From the sole of the foot to the head, there is no soundness in it. Wounds and bruises and open sores. They have not been closed up or bound or soothed with ointment. So, what kind of person won't take care of themselves? Walk around with gangrene and you won't see about it. And you see that it's hurting you. Only a person that's wandering that's lost. A hopeless person. No purpose. I don't have nothing else to live for.
I was just about to say one ready to die.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't understand the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So show them the purpose, their purpose.
Mm-hmm. All praises. Forgotten generations. Deuteronomy 8:11. Be on guard, right? We was warned. Be on guard, lest you forget what we not supposed to be forgetting.
Come on.
Yahuwah your Elohim by not guarding his commands, his right rulings, his laws which I command you today, lest you eat and be satisfied, and build lovely houses and shall dwell in them. So you're gonna reap the reward and then you're gonna forget how you got it.
That part.
And your herds and your flocks increase, and your silver and your gold are increased, and all that you have is increased, that your heart then becomes lifted up. And you forget Yahuwah your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mizraim from the house of bondage. So when you forget certain things in those generations before and how you got where you got, then you start to deceive yourself when you believe what? By my own might, my own strength.
My hand have gotten me this thing. But it says
All praises.
Yeah.
it just
It's
made
like
me
that.
think of the other scripture. I think it was I think it's Deuteronomy. Let me get it first. 18 or something. It says, remember Yahuwah in all you're doing because it is he that gives you the power.
Hmm.
to get wealth.
Hmm.
It's He that gives us the power to do these things, and not
Hmm.
we ourselves.
Hmm.
And so yeah.
Hmm. All praises. Hmm.
Hmm.
Mm. All praises. Verse 14 again. He says that your heart then becomes lifted up and you forget Yahuwah your Elohim who brought you out of the land of Mizraim from the house of bondage, who led you through that great and awesome wilderness, fiery serpents and scorpions, and thirst, where there was no water, who brought water for you out of the flinty rock, who fed you in the wilderness with manna, which your fathers did not know, in order to humble you and to try you, to do you tob in the end. You then shall say in your heart, my power and my strength of my hand have made for me this wealth. But you shall remember Yahuwah, your Elohim, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, in order to establish his covenant, which he swore to your fathers as it is today. And it shall be, if you by any means forget Yahuwah your Elohim, and follow other mighty ones, and serve them, and bow yourself to them. I have warned you this day that you shall certainly perish. Again, he was a perishing Aryan man, a wandering Aryan man, right? He this state of being lost, this state of perishing, this state of wandering, it's a circumstance of you forgetting something that's happened in your generations before you.
Hmm.
You don't know where you're going because you don't know where you've been.
That also kind of brings forth to talk about like in a time period of parachute, like not and what is it and versus the just the story behind that of multiple
Oh,
takes.
being a beginning instead of being the
Oh,
beginning.
okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Hmm.
wasn't sure if I should be on this, but yeah, it makes me think about that because it's like if he's wandering and he has forgotten where he has came from. Um, then this is a like a cycle of it occurring before had as it is occurring again. So it's just proof in the pudding. You know, if you read between the lines, you'll see these are not cyclical things.
All praises. Go ahead.
And I just feel so goofy because the scripture I was talking about, you literally read it. I knew it was a teen in there somewhere. It was right there. And I didn't read on the screen the whole way down because I'm like, yeah, it's somewhere in Deuteronomy. No, it's right here. That was it. But you shall remember your Elohim.
All
For
praises.
it is he who gives you power to get wealth. Yeah.
All praises. When you know, you know. All praises.
Like it's somewhere in there. It's got a teen. I know it's somewhere right there.
I mean, yeah, all praises. So verse 18 he says, but you shall remember Yahuwah your Elohim, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth in order to establish his covenant, which he swore to your fathers as it is today. And it shall be, if you by any means forget Yahuwah your Elohim and follow other mighty ones and serve them and bow yourselves to them, I have warned you this day that you shall certainly perish. Like the nations which Yahuwah is destroying before you, so you are to perish, because you did not obey the voice of Yahuwah your Elohim. Hmm. Something to think about. When we think about the ways of those nations, they was a lost people. Only somebody lost will do some of the acts and things that they did in that land. So you would do that with your own mama, daddy, sister? Nah, that's lost. You don't know, you don't understand and know that you don't do that. That this is where you come from. Mm.
And it makes it that much deeper because it's like we were supposed to be a light to the nations, but instead we went amongst the nations and did what they did completely. You know, the light was going. Like the father's like, I gave you this information to spread it out. You know, because I am the Elohim of, of you, your nation. And so spread out the word, shine my light. But instead, we wanted to be lost like them. And for some reason, I don't know, something about being lost is desirable to the people of Yahuwah. I know there's different standards and different situations, but some people do prefer just to stay in that lost mindset. They don't want to know anything else, and I've heard that before too. Like, just don't tell me, because if you tell me, I know it's gonna be on my conscience. I'm like, what? You should want to know about the truth. You know what I mean? But I've heard someone flat out told me, just don't tell me. I prefer not to even know. And so some people prefer to be in that lost state,
Mhm.
and just made me think when you said that. I'm like, oh, okay, well, like our ancestors, us, like some of us really just prefer to be in that lost mindset.
I can attest to that. It was literally grocery shopping yesterday, getting prepared for today. Went to the grocery store, was in the checkout line, an older black gentleman, one of our elders. By all accounts, should be one of our, elders. There was a black lady in the checkout line ahead of me, and she was checking out her stuff and had a chicken, like one of those rotisserie chickens, ringing it up and everything, and they just striking up small talk. And it goes something like, he's like, man, these chickens don't stand a chance, do they? Something, 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 something. And he was talking about, yeah, the conversation went to, and I'm overhearing the conversation because I'm right behind her. The conversation goes into how they keep pumping the chickens with hormones and whatnot, and he makes the statement, flats out says, yeah, they putting so much stuff in the chicken and stuff, and if we just knew what we would see, if we saw it, we wouldn't want to eat nothing. So I don't even want them to see it. I don't care. I'm gonna still eat this chicken. I don't even want to see it. I don't care. I just don't show it to me because I'm gonna still eat my chicken. And that's basically his declaration. I don't care what they're putting in our food. I'm still going to eat the food. And here I am behind them both, eating vegetarian, eating vegan at times, literally for that reason, because he had made some kind of a part of that comment also was like, you know, just basically saying who don't eat chicken, y'all love chicken, who don't love chicken? And here I come. And you know how being in small talk, you kind of look at other people, just trying not to leave them out of the conversation. And so, just looking at me and everything, and I'm coming up next and ringing my stuff in, and I'm like, well, I don't know what you're talking about because I don't eat chicken. I'm like, I flat out don't eat the chicken because I know the stuff they're pumping in the food is killing us. And I'm not going to do that to myself or my family. I said, I want to be around as Yah allows for my children's children's children, great great grands. And so then we get the conversation kind of shifts to how his father used to have a big garden. Because then we get on, because and I love, we try to grow our own food sometimes. He's like, yeah, my daddy used to have a big garden, and people don't do that anymore. Da 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 da. And I'm like, yeah, well, some people do that, and some people are making that decision to leave that crap alone. Because if I know that it's killing me, and I know this of a surety for a fact, why would I continue to do that to myself? Ain't no piece of chicken that doggone good, and my taste buds gonna dictate my death. Period. Y'all willing, you know. But yeah, I can attest to exactly what you were saying, and it just makes me think of drawing it back to the previous conversation, actually in the next chapter, how it talks about, listen, I didn't choose you as a nation because you were more righteous. I didn't choose you because you were mightier. I didn't choose you because you were greater in number than anybody. You was the least. You was weak. You was, like, no, you wasn't it.
Mhm.
I'm bringing you to drive them out because of their wickedness. Because of like what you were talking about. No, they okay with doing this today, mama, sister, brother, cousin, uncles, aunties, everybody, neighbor. They okay with doing this mess. They okay with mixing and mingling and doing X, Y, Z, and whatever it is that they heart desire. There is no boundary with them. They are so lawless, and the land is so filled with sin. I got to bring somebody in who just a little less defiled than them. But don't think that you got it all together because you ain't it either. I have to make you it. Like you were talking about, getting chosen. I got to make you it. So you have to be pliable. If we don't remember what went on in our previous generations, we are no longer pliable to understanding so that we can be made into something. So yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to go in the you know what.
Thank you, sister teacher. It's definitely deep though. Coming from that condition of one not wanting to know, which is really not caring enough about yourself to know. It's another form of self hate. Like, because I don't think I'm worthy to be living, I'm not worth investing in to preserve my own life. And that's deep.
All praises. Yeah, all praises. So notice how something as simple as forgetting the generations before you can cause you to err in your thinking. Notice what happens when you are not mindful of what the generations before you did, whether Tob or Ra, whether good or bad. We know that the Father will visit the iniquity upon the generations to come or have mercy on generations to come, right? Exodus chapter 20, verse 1, and Elohim spoke all these words, saying, I am Yahuwah your Elohim who brought you out of the land of Mizraim, out of the house of slavery or bondage. You have no other mighty ones against my face. You do not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of that which is in the heavens above, or which is in the earth beneath, or which is in the waters under the earth. You do not bow yourself to them, nor serve them, for I, Yahuwah your Elohim, am a jealous El, visiting the crookedness of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing loving commitment, steadfast love to thousands, to those who love me and guard my commands. Right? So the question for us is, what does this mean and how does it apply to us? Does this mean that the fathers eat sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on edge? Is this saying that the Father will judge the righteous with the judgment belonging to the wicked?
Because I like to bring things not necessarily like modern day but current thinking, and try to apply it to different things society wise so that try to make it make sense. And we hear a lot of times, people will say, oh no, we ain't got to pay for the sins of our fathers, we ain't got to do this, we ain't got to do that, because he ain't gonna judge us for back then for what we didn't do. Well, I put it like this: can our earthly fathers, can we be or reap a benefit from 12 things our earthly fathers did? For example, can we get an inheritance from a grandfather that left some a good thing, a bank account or something somewhere? Can we receive tove for what they did? So then what makes us think that we cannot receive evil for something that we did? Right. Somebody has to pay. What makes us think that if our earthly fathers can leave us good, why do we think that they can't leave us bad? That's unbalanced.
All praises. So here's our word for visiting, right? Pakad H6485. It means to visit with friendly or hostile intent. So this can go either way. It's indifferent, right? By analogy, to oversee, to muster, to charge, to care for, to miss, deposit, right? So I'm gonna look at the Brown Drivers Briggs. To attend to muster, to number, to reckon, to visit, to punish, to appoint, look after, care for, right? Really, here's the call. This is what this is saying. He's gonna pay attention to you. I'm gonna observe you. I'm gonna attend to you. I'm seeking and I'm gonna look about, right? This is what he means when he says he's visiting this iniquity, right? I'm observing. If this, I know this is in the fathers, and like you said, can something? This it goes back to the question earlier that we asked, right? Can something, whether it be geographical or genetic, can that affect you and alter how you would respond in a given any given situation, right?
No, because I was looking up mustard. I know what mustard is. And so, what is muster? Maybe somebody don't know what it is like I didn't. And so muster by definition means to assemble troops, especially for inspection or in preparation for battle. So,
All praises. All praises. Mhm. 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 All praises. So to pass in review, to muster, to number, to appoint, assign, lay upon as a charge, right? So, like, what are we seeing here? We saying again, he look. This was in your daddy. I'm just gonna come and visit you, and I'm gonna inspect you. Are you like him or not? Odds are you are, and if you are, third and fourth generation. He hated me, and you look like you a hater of me, just like he was. I knew the fruit didn't fall far from the tree, right? It's not that he's gonna make you be guilty. If you righteous, you righteous. And we see that many a times, right? Like, for instance, King Josiah. He was supposed to be punished in his generation because of the sins of Manasseh. But because he turned his heart, the father made a covenant specifically with him and said, not in your day. It's still coming, but I'm visiting. And since I visited, and when I visited you, you had something different in you. Oh, it's gonna come back out in the it's gonna come back out in the rinse. So don't worry. But in your generation, it's not gonna be there. But I'm gonna come back in the next generation. And if it's there, what I said I'm gonna do. Right? So the father is just and fair. It's not that my teeth are set on edge for something that my fathers did, but I can definitely be affected and impacted by it. And if I make the choice to do the same thing that they did, well, yeah. What I said I was gonna do in the next generation. See, he thought he was slick and he thought he got away with that. What I said I was gonna do in that next generation, oh, I'm here. I'm looking. So I'm gonna extend mercy, give you an opportunity to correct some of these things that they did. And if you choose to say, nah, I don't care, I'm gonna just keep doing what he did. Or I'm gonna do worse, like Red Bum said, right? You thought my daddy was bad, I'm gonna be way worse. hmm If that's the mentality that you got, Father gonna visit you. And when he visits you and you found lacking, then he gonna judge that.
Especially when he's been mercifully and carefully trying to generate something new in you. And you keep putting it down for the sake of holding on to something he's trying to get out of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So just something for us to consider, especially as we thinking and we looking at this particular Torah portion Toldot, right? Because we're gonna see that it's something that's in Yaakov that's been lingering in these generations that he gonna have to deal with if he wants to be chosen. Choice is his. Mhm.
Absolutely modern day. And like I said, I like to try to make it make sense to current events and current situations and stuff. And just thinking about, like you said, like it says there, is the father's teeth, or did the father eat sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on edge? No, the father's going to visit those generations and see, are you just like
Mhm.
what was previously done?
Mhm.
Because if you are just like it, then no longer are you going to pay for what your father did. You essentially paying for your own mistakes.
Mhm.
And I liken that to medically nowadays, how a lot of stuff that we go through, illnesses, ailments, and stuff like
Mhm.
that, it's literally they want to say, oh, because such and such in my family had diabetes,
Mhm.
I'm predisposed to it. No, because such and such had poor eating habits. Bringing
Mhm.
it back to the situation about the hormone stuff, chicken.
Mhm.
Bringing it back to the situation about choosing what we're eating,
Mhm.
eating those things that are literally killing us
Mhm.
slowly.
Mhm.
You know, everything that the Most High said, don't eat pork, seafood, all of that stuff. No, because you have such poor eating habits. These things cause mucus. These things cause high cholesterol. These things cause inflammation and parasitic infestation in the body. And so now you're not associating that bad behavior
Mhm.
with something that is detrimental to you. You just chalking it up to, oh, well, it was passed down from
Mhm.
my great grandmother.
Mhm.
She had diabetes. My grandmother had diabetes. My mama got diabetes. And well, I'm just liable to get diabetes. No, you've been cooking the same way that your great grandmother been
Mhm.
cooking. And instead of switching it up when the father's trying to give you a gentle nudge and tell you through his word, don't do that.
Mhm.
I gave you the word for life more abundantly. You can choose to do it if you want to, but then you won't have an abundant life. You won't be operating in optimal condition.
Mhm.
You know, no, we are paying for it 3, 4, 5, 6 generations later because of our poor choices. We're not
Mhm.
eating. We're not having our teeth on edge because of what our forefathers did. It's what we're choosing to
Mhm.
continue
You
in.
eat those same sour grapes.
That
That's why your teeth on edge.
there you
Yeah,
go.
they ate them. Yeah, they ate them, and his teeth was on edge too. But yours on edge because you eating from that same bush.
That
Like,
part.
uh-huh, same vine there. Like, mhm. So, am I going about studying for the lesson and whatnot? I saw where a guy was. He mentioned the prime, the proverbial question of nature versus nurture, right? And which one is responsible for why we are the way that we are? And one group will say, well, no, it's because of, it's just in my nature, like you were saying. This is in my genetics. This is in my genes. That I was destined to be this way. Look at the ones that came before me. Then you have some that will say, look at the environment I came from. I didn't have a choice. But what he said was profound. He said, while those things are true, and while both of those have an effect and impact, both of them are the wrong answer. Because what they both do is they shift the blame on somebody outside of self, right? It's, oh, it's my environment. Oh, it's the ones that came before me. Those things are true. However, you still eating from that same grapevine. You still choosing to eat from the same grapevine. And that's just the reality for all of us. Like, I got some bad habits, you know, some learned behaviors that are bad habits, some inherited things that are bad habits, character traits, or whatever the case may be. And but at the end of the day, choice is still mine, right? So, yeah, all praises. So, that's something to think about. So, Forgotten generations. Hosea 4 and 6. Sorry, it's so small, but I wanted to fit it on on this slide. So Hosea 4 and 6. He says, "My people have perished for a lack of knowledge." So this perishing or wandering Aramaic, it's a different word here in Hebrew, but it's the same meaning, same concept, right? You're perishing because of a lack of knowledge, a lack of the understanding that you need. What don't you know? What don't his people know? And why are they perishing? Because of what they don't know, right? Mm. All praises. Fear of Elohim. Yep, fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of. Okay, all praises.
Yeah, and then that remembering what Yahuwah has done for our fathers, also remembering the consequences
Mm.
of those that didn't choose his fear,
Mm.
and not allowing the next generation to overlook those.
Mm.
Like there are barakings and there's curses that come with
Mm.
how you deal with his instructions.
Mm.
And you're gonna get one or the other or a combination.
All praises. Mhm. All praises. He says, because you have rejected knowledge. So now we starting to see that, oh yeah, not only is it a lack of knowledge here, and it's something that you don't know because perhaps somebody didn't teach you, but also you didn't go seeking for it either. When it came to you, you did what? You rejected it. So because you have rejected knowledge, I reject you from being priest for me. Since you have forgotten the Torah of your Elohim, I also forget your children. Hmm. So do we see how this whole visiting iniquity, how this process can work from generation to generation, and how these curses and things can travel generation from generation if the same things are being done generation from generation?
Because when I think about the curses and like first coming into this walk,
Mhm.
we read it as if, like it says in there, oh, I will do this to you. I will do this to you. That's what the Most High is saying about
Mhm.
it. But upon realization, it's like, it's not that he wanted that for us. He's literally telling us these curses are a result. I have
Mhm.
set this forth as a result. When you don't
Mhm.
walk in life,
Mhm.
when you don't walk in a manner which is knowledgeable, you reject knowledge, but when you're not walking in a manner which is going to help you operate optimally, these things are going to happen as a result
Mhm.
automatically. It's not that because he's a told father to us. Who
Mhm.
else,
Mhm.
is providing for us, have created all this for us? Like,
Mhm.
who's gonna want their children to just
Mhm.
perish?
Mhm.
No, he don't want that for us, but
Mhm.
he's telling us, no, I set it forth. And if you don't walk in what I set forth, it's going to automatically happen to you.
Mhm.
Don't let this happen to you.
Mhm. Mhm. All praises. Says, as they were increased, so they sinned against me. Hmm. I'm gonna forget your children because as they got increased, they sinned against me. My esteem, they have changed into shame. Right? So as you having children, these children coming in, they sinning against me. So with that being said, yeah, that's why I'm gonna forget them. Right? He's always just. He always just. He says, or the question was, do you see how knowing what is in your generations can cause you to perish? Or how not knowing what is in your generations can cause you to perish? This doesn't mean that the next generation is guilty for sins they did not commit, but instead they are guilty for the sins that they have repeated, just as their fathers did. This is why we see the cycle we see in Leviticus 26, right? And we don't see that it's something that he's gonna call us to do, to say, no, you need to be thinking about these generations before. because you doing the same stuff. And that's why this is happening to you. Leviticus 26:14. But if you do not obey me and do not do all these commands, and if you reject my laws, or if your being loathes my right rulings, my dear, you gotta look up what that being is. Your nefesh, your appetite loathes my right ruling. You don't have an appetite for what I say is right. Mm. So that you do not do all my commands, but break my covenant. I also do this to you. And I shall appoint sudden alarm over you, wasting disease and inflammation. Destroying the eyes and consuming the life. And you shall sow your seed in vain, and your enemy shall eat it. Jumping down to verse 21. And if you walk contrary to me, so notice that this is conditional. Now, if you walk contrary to me, because there were blessings if you walk with me, right? If you obey and you walk with me, Abraham walked with Elohim. Noah walked with Elohim. You walk with me, Enoch walked with Elohim. You walk with me, huh, you gonna get the blessings. But if you walk contrary to me and refuse to obey me, I shall bring on you 7 times more plagues according to your sins. And if you are not instructed, jumping down to verse 23, and if you are not instructed by me by these, but walk contrary to me, then I also shall walk contrary to you, and I myself shall strike you 7 times more for your sins. Are we seeing a pattern? Then I'm going to visit again. Verse 24, then I shall walk contrary to you, and I myself shall strike you 7 times more for your sins. Jumping down to verse 27 and 28. And if, in spite of this, I'm going to visit again, have you had enough? You do not obey me, but walk contrary to me, then I shall walk contrary to you in wrath, and I myself shall punish you 7 times for your sins. Not for nobody else's, but for yours. Right? Jumping down to verse 40. But if they confess, this is how the cycle gets broken. But if they confess their crookedness and the crookedness of their fathers, so if you can call back to mind these generations of old, if you can call back and you can remember how they was and why this is happening and why you operate how you operate, because this is you've been learning, you learned this just from them. You doing the same things from them, and why I punish them is the same reason why I'm punishing you. But if you can confess that that was wrong and that you wrong for doing the same things or worse than they doing, you got a fighting chance. We can break this cycle. I'm willing to reason with you. I'm trying to speak comfortably to you. Mhm. With their trespass, in which they trespassed against me, and that they also have walked contrary to me, and that I also have walked contrary to them, and have brought them into the land of their enemies. Mm. So that means no matter how much we stand on the corners, no matter how much we street preach and beat one another down, no matter how much we beat the other nations down, until we can acknowledge that we're wrong and that everything that we got is because we asked for it, and that the reason why we're here is because our fathers transgressed against you, and that we still here because we're still doing the same things that they did. That means we're gonna perpetually keep being in this same rut, this same situation. So he said, and that I have also walked contrary to them, and have brought them into the land of their enemies. If their uncircumcised heart is then humbled, and they accept the punishment of their crookedness. So it's like what you said, that acceptance, right? Mm.
that acceptance is what we catch a glimpse of when we look at, I'll say, the demise of King Dawid and his household, and how he's seeing his household basically be turned inside out as a direct consequence of his own foolishness, and him accepting that and praising the Father anyway, realizing, no, I need to endure this because once this has been endured, once the price of my sin has been paid, then it's on the up and up again. Although I'm not going to see the house get built in this lifetime, he's made me a promise and I know he's going to keep it.
Mm,
And for that, I'm still going to celebrate him.
mhm, mhm. All praises. All praises. All praises. If their uncircumcised heart is then humbled and they accept the punishment of their crookedness, then I shall remember my covenant with Jacob and also my covenant with Isaac. So if you remember, then I'll remember. Hmm. And also remember my covenant with Abraham and remember the land. So we forgotten only because we forget.
And I'm glad you went here because it just shows the justification of the Father. He's just and righteous in all his ways. And he warned us. He always warns us. He lets us know, but before he makes us a decision, he gives us warnings. And yeah, so he's just and what in all his ways.
Oh yeah, all praises.
And I just want us to sit with that for a minute because you made a super dope point. Like, it really does not matter how much street teaching that we do if we're not acknowledging that the ways that we walked in were flat out wrong, are flat out wrong. And even in all of that street teaching, some of those ways are still being perpetuated.
Mhm.
Flat out wrong. We're not remembering the covenant because certain things, if we were remembering that covenant, certain behaviors, certain mannerisms, certain thought processes would not be. They would not be so. So yeah, like that really need to sink in.
Mhm.
And until we really dig into what his covenant is, Ketubah, his law, Torah, how we gonna remember and how we gonna start to fix that, like, no, we still thinking that certain things is okay. We still thinking this type of mixing and mingling, this type of speaking, this type of, you know, attitude, this type of, all of that is okay when none of that is indicative of someone who's walking in covenant with the Father. Like,
And also, no need to play the blame game on anybody. Look at yourself within yourself. Like that's my thing. Like regardless of what has occurred, Avia's gonna deal with it. But overall, we have to look at ourselves and say, okay, we're here because of our ancestors and because of us and how we are now. And so again, Abiya's justified. So now, okay, what can we do if we remember his commandments, statutes, and ordinances and walk with him? Then he will remember the covenant and remember the land and remember us. So it's a simple fix, really, but doesn't mean that we're not going to still be in this state because 7 times, 7 more times, it's like it's gonna. His word is true. It's yeah. It doesn't come back void, so it's gonna happen because he said it. But you know what? He'll baruch us within this captivity or within this land. So just turn back to him.
because one thing I have realized, like you said, we can't blame anybody else outside ourselves, and he'll completely destroy us of the mind 7 times, 7 times again, 7 times. How many more sevens it's gonna take?
Mhm.
One thing I have realized though, he always evens the playing field. He always evens the playing field. And so when we pay attention and really look back into the covenant and see what it is that is at stake here, what's at stake is our LOI fighting for us. What's at stake is our relationship with him. What's at stake is his favor. And when we actually start to hold that in esteem and wait and realize, no, that's the thing to be reached for. That's the thing we want is his favor because it don't matter what nobody else can do. Because the Father gonna even the playing field when they play with his.
Mhm.
If we got his favor on us, he gonna even the playing field.
Mhm.
And it's not gonna be once again because we're so mighty, we're so righteous, we're so this, we're so that's gonna be for there. And he gonna for his name's sake. Come on, for his name's sake. Listen,
Mhm.
come on with it.
Mhm. All praises, absolutely. Man, again, we see King Josiah do that very thing, right? That's the process that he went through and why he was spared in that day, right? He went through and saw. They brought the book of the law to him and said, "We think you need to see this." And when he looked in it and said, "So this is why we are suffering the way we're suffering." Before I didn't know why this was happening,
Come on, sir.
but now I see. Oh, this is why this is happening. He tore his robes and said, "Now we got to clean this up. We got to fix this."
Nehemiah.
Mm-hmm.
Nehemiah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All praises. All right. So, what is an Araman? Right. So, the word Araman is Arami, um, patrial from 7H758, Aramite or Araman, Assyrian. No, you see some translations translated quote unquote as Assyrian. Um, but it's from H758 Aram, which means uh, it's the same as H759, the highland, Aram or Syria, and its inhabitants. Also, the name of a son of Shem, a grandson of Nahor, and of an Israelite. Aram, Mesopotamia, Syria, Syrians, right? So Shem's son, right? And this is why these are quote unquote wandering Aramaeans, right? Genesis 10:22, the sons of Shem, Elam and Ashur and Arpaxad and Lud and Aram. And then if you follow that genealogy, it follows from Aram going down into all of the rest until you get to Abraham. Right. So Genesis 22:20 is where we see this, and there's also another Aram that is he's an Aramean as well. He's an Aram from Aram, and he is one of the he's of the house of Abraham's people of Laban, right? So we're gonna see, yep, a grandson of Nahor. So Genesis 22:20 it says, and it came to be after these events that it was reported to Abraham, saying, "See, Milcah too has borne children to your brother Nahor. Uts his firstborn, and Booz his brother, and Kemuel the father of Aram, and Kesed, and Hazo, and Pildash, and Yidlaf, and Bethuel. And Bethuel brought forth Rivkah. These eight Milcah bore to Nahor, Abraham's brother. All right, so basically the way that the family tree goes, you got Nahor, Kemuel, Aram, Bethuel. Bethuel has Laban and Rivkah. Rivkah obviously marries Isaac, and then they have Jacob and Esau, right? So you see how Jacob is connected to this Aramean both ways. All right, so what is an Aramean? Now, this is interesting for us to pay attention to because this is a detail that both opens and closes our Parsha. All right, the fact that somebody is an Aramean is literally the Parsha is open. This Parsha is opened up with that fact and closes on that fact. So something is going on here, and we'll dig into it a little bit. So, in other words, our parsha is hinged upon this detail. Remember, this parsha Toldot reads from Genesis 25:19 to 28, verse 9. All right, so at the beginning of the parsha, we read in Genesis 25:19, and this is the genealogy of Isaac, or the generation, the Toldot of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham brought forth Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rivkah as wife, and the daughter of Bethuel the Aramean or Arami of Padanaram, the sister of Laban the Aramean. So something about Bethuel and something about Laban that they keep wanting us to know. Aramean, Aramean. Why is that? And at its closing, we read Genesis 28:5. So Isaac sent Jacob away, and he went to Padan Aram to Laban, son of Bethuel, the Aramean, the brother of Rivkah, the mother of Jacob and Esau. So it's something about this, and we're gonna see where Jacob ties into this whole Arami thing. And then he's this wandering Aramean that becomes great. So now we know we are to remember that Jacob was a wandering Aramean because, or that became a great nation. Keep this in mind as we continue. And then what was that process for him not just being a wandering Aramean, but being elevated to this great nation? What was the process of how this occurred with Jacob? It's something that Jacob is going to do and transform and become that is going to make him more than just a wandering Aramean. So an intentional word pun, right? So now I want to point out something that I found interesting. I think there is a reason that every time Laban is mentioned, he is specifically referred to as the Arami. We also know that Jacob is also referred to as being a wandering Aramean. Is it possible that there's a double entendre or a metaphorical play on words that is taking place here? When we look at the word Aram in Hebrew, we see that it is a homophone, right? So, and by pun, I just mean a pun is a joke exploiting the different possible meanings of a word or the fact that there are words which sound alike but have different meanings. So, literally, when a Hebrew speaker is hearing Laban the Arami, it's like, oh, yeah, he was a Arami, all right. Like it can be because it sounds the exact same as another word. So, an example, they said, make a joke exploiting the different possible meanings of a word. Deuteronomy, the dictionary. Boy, I tell you where my mind is at. All right, so a homophone, the dictionary for a homophone, is each of two or more words having the same pronunciation but different meanings, origins, or spelling. For example, new and new, right? So when we hear it, just in speaking, like context is how we gonna know which one it is, and you can play on that, right? Each set of symbols denoting the same sound or group of sounds, right? So in Genesis chapter 3, we read that the serpent was the most subtle beast of the field. When we look at this word for subtle, we see the word Aram. However, it's spelled differently, right? So in Genesis 3:1, it says, and the Nachash was more crafty than all the lives or all the beasts of the field which Yahuwah Elohim had made. And he said to the woman, is it true that Elohim has said, do not eat of every tree of the garden? So the word there is H6175, a room, which is cunning, usually in a bad sense, crafty, prudent, subtle, right? So from H6191, Aram sounds the same, but instead of it being spelled with a olive, it's spelled with an iron. Properly to be or make bare, but used only in the derived sense through the idea perhaps of smoothness. Now, that's interesting because, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. To be cunning, usually in a bad sense, very, to beware, take crafty counsel, to be prudent, to deal subtly. All right. Mm. So Laban the Arami. It's a play on the word, right? So in this case, an Arami is a trickster or one that uses subtlety and cunning. Do we see how this describes something that is both in Laban and Jacob? Mm. Nickel slick, as they say. hmm Right. So we see how they both may be, how they both are, an Arami. Like, yeah, you're an Arami over this way, but you're also an Arami this way. right? So we will also see how this smoothness will describe Jacob later, right? The details. So we saw that Esau is a rough and hairy man, and then Jacob says, "I'm a smooth man," right? So you don't see how these is all of these little details in the story that's letting you know about what's going on, right? So just something to keep in mind. So all praises, all praises. So earlier we saw how Jacob is referred to as a wandering or perishing Aramaean that was made great. This is something that we were to remember and recite when we offered our first fruits or our bikurim. What connection would remembering that have to do with first fruits? So remember, I said we was gonna come back to that. Here we are. All right. So consider this, because, like he said in Deuteronomy, he said, "When you offer this offering, you shall say, my father was a wandering Aramaean, and you brought him up and made him this great nation." Right? He went into Egypt as a one. This is what you say when you offer this first fruit. And it's something you're supposed to remember. You're supposed to remember this detail, and they will recite this to the priests with their offering in their basket of a first fruit. And why would you need to remember this with the first fruit is the question, right? Why is he having them uh, uh, why is he having them recite this?
Because with the latter spin on Arami or Aramaean, it's like, yeah. And Sirach, it says, who will trust him that has no sure resting place? Like if you ain't got your home and all you do is go from place to place, who gonna trust you? If you wander and just getting by on your cunning,
Mm-hmm,
like, and there's no real come up from that.
mm-hmm,
Like it has to be some intervention for you to go from that, basically a vagabond, to becoming a great nation. You can't say that
mm-hmm,
that's in your own strength. Not if you want your provision to continue.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
As I say, also, maybe like the verdict or the judgment might have something to do with the offense. Well, obviously, it would have something to do with the offense. What was it that Yaakov didn't do or didn't used to do that now we as his children, or even them back then as his children, were supposed to remember specifically to do? He didn't do something.
mm-hmm,
He might have thought more of himself than what he was. Or, as we see it, Laban thought he was a pimp named Slickback. Cole might have got some of those qualities, thinking he was nickel slick.
mm-hmm,
But now, no, you supposed to remember. No, my father thought he was nickel slick, but I'm gonna do what what. So
mm-hmm,
that's all I'm saying is,
mm-hmm,
what did it?
mm-hmm,
It probably indicates what he didn't do, what the verdict is, what we're supposed to do. So
mm-hmm. All praises. All praises. Mm-hmm. All praises. So something to consider, right? Well, while we were offered this with the on Yom Habikarim, or just as with our first fruits in general, because all of those uh, Chag, those feast days, that's what they are, right? Is a harvest that's taking place, and 3 times a year you can't come empty-handed. So Genesis 25:29. And Jacob cooked the stew, and Esau came in from the field, right? We read that with last Parsha before. But it says, and Esau came in from the field, and he was weary. And Esau said to Jacob, please feed me with that same red stew, for I am weary. That is why his name was called Edom. But Jacob said, sell me your birthright today. And Esau said, look, I am going to die, so why should I have a birthright? Right? So When we look at that word for birthright, what's interesting is it's the word H1062, Bakora, right? The feminine of Bakur, which is the exact same word here. The same word for first fruit, firstborn, first fruit, the firstling. So, not get ahead of myself. The firstling of man or beast, right? That's what a Bakura is. It's birthright. It's the firstling of the man or a beast. Abstractly, primogeniture, birthright, firstborn or firstling. H1060, Bakor, the firstborn, hence the chief, the eldest son, the firstborn, the firstling, right? So notice how this is the same word for a first fruit, a Bakur, as in the first fruit offering. In this, we see that the significance of what the father, we see the significance of what the father was doing with that wandering Arab man. He was choosing him as a first fruit or as a firstling. He was giving him the birthright. So Deuteronomy 7:6, for you are a set apart people to Yahuwah your Elohim. Yahuwah your Elohim has chosen you. So we saw that this was a birthright that was not according to the natural order, but because he was chosen. And then we also know we saw in cases where literally the one who was supposed to have the birthright, i.e., we're gonna see in future portions with Reuben, right? That he was supposed to be accounted as the firstling, but because he had sinned against his father and he had iniquity found in him, it was not credited to him, but instead it was credited to Joseph's sons, right? Mm, mm,
Yeah, Shaitan.
mm-hmm,
Clearly, he was chosen as a vessel of honor. That's why he was decorated the way he was.
mm-hmm,
Until, as you stated, iniquity was found in him.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All praises. So he says, for you are a set apart people to Yahuwah your Elohim. Yahuwah your Elohim has chosen you to be a people for himself, a treasured possession above all peoples on the face of the earth. So that means you're going to be the firstling. You're going to be the first fruit. You're going to be the one that's going to have a double portion. I will be your inheritance, right? Yahuwah did not set his love on you nor choose you because you were more numerous than any other people, for you were the least of all the people. You weren't naturally the firstborn. You weren't naturally the one to receive the birthright. You was the youngin. You was like David. You the baby, baby boy. Mm-hmm.
He wasn't young and just like, oh, he's big for his age. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no, listen, running the little.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What did we see earlier in Deuteronomy 32? Right when he set the boundaries of the people according to the sons of Israel, he chose you. You wasn't a nation. You wasn't accounted in those 70 nations.
Come on.
I heard that in dog picking.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's deep. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting, and even in the separation of animals, like buying and selling of canines, somebody that knows how to nurture and train up a dog will select the runt just to show their skill level in nurturing. Once the runt outgrows and outcompetes the rest of them.
Mm-hmm. All praises.
Connection you were saying with the first fruits, the birthright, Yaakov versus Esau. You were saying that, right? The connection. Basically talking about birthright in the similar to being like the first fruit. Like in the Hebraic definition. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you saying recall Yaakov recalling to mind. We are reciting that because of to highlight that situation.
So like what when we look at that, what we're doing is we see like no, this birthright was far more than just a physical birthright. No, this was a spiritual birthright that the Father was bestowing on this line, this lineage, this nation, a holy priesthood, right? Like what all praises. All praises. So like that's basically what we was gonna dance around, right? Like just what Ox said. Like even when you look at, but it's always something that can be lost if you don't do what you're supposed to do. Like the original plan was what? The first of all of it, the 12 tribes
Mm-hmm.
was supposed to be the priesthood. It was not supposed to be a Levitical priesthood.
Come on.
But because of the iniquity that happened with the golden calf, the line got drew in the sand, and Levi was the one that stepped up. So then they got ransomed for all of the firstborn. He said, I'm gonna take the firstborn, or I'm gonna take the whole tribe of Levi instead of a firstborn of every tribe. And so, like, you see how, yeah, no, this choosing that the Father does is completely different. It's a whole different system than the natural.
Indeed.
I was gonna say in other, you know what? I was gonna say also we also kind of find out elsewhere that, like, I think you just said it too with Reuben.
Mm-hmm,
He was going to be king and priest.
mm-hmm,
He was going to, because he was the firstborn
mm-hmm,
of his loins, of Jacob's loins with
mm-hmm,
Leah.
mm-hmm,
But because of the iniquity in him,
mm-hmm,
defiling of the couch of it, run
mm-hmm,
what he did.
mm-hmm,
Now it gets split. The two portions that he was going, the double
mm-hmm,
portion that he was going to get,
mm-hmm,
that got split
mm-hmm,
between his younger brethren.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So yeah.
mm-hmm. All praises. All praises. So he says, Yahuwah did not set his love on you nor choose you because you were more numerous than any other people, for you were the least of all peoples. But because of Yahuwah loving you and because of him guarding the oath which he swore to your fathers, some we got to remember, Yahuwah has brought you out with a strong hand and ransomed you from the house of bondage, from the hand of Pharaoh, the sovereign of Mizraim. And you shall know that Yahuwah your Elohim, he is Elohim, the trustworthy El, guarding covenant and loving commitment for 1,000 generations, just what we said earlier, with those who love him and those who guard his commands, but repaying those who hate him to their face to destroy them. He does not delay to do so with him who hates him. He repays him to his face. Matthew 20, verse 16. Thus the last shall be first, and the first last. For many are called, but few chosen. And we know that the few are chosen because few choose. Mhm, mhm. All praises. All praises. So, Exodus 19:5. And now, if you diligently obey my voice and shall guard my covenant, then you shall be my treasured possession above all peoples. For all the earth is mine. I I own everything, but you gonna get a special inheritance. You're gonna get a birthright. And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a set apart nation. Those those are the words which you are to speak to the children of Israel. Exodus 13:11. And it shall be when Yahuwah brings you into the land of the Canaanites, as he swore to your fathers, as he swore to you and your fathers, and gives it to you, that you shall give over to Yahuwah everyone opening the womb. So this was that original plan we was talking about. And every firstborn, i.e., the birthright, that comes from your livestock, the males belong to Yahuwah. But every firstborn of a donkey you are to ransom with a lamb. And if you do not ransom it, then you shall break its neck. And every firstborn man among your sons you are to ransom. And it shall be when your son asks you in the time to come. You all see how I keep on coming back to don't let this be forgotten in these generations. And if you want to keep this birthright, there's something you need to be remembering. What is this? Why was I ransomed? Why was I chose to be part of this peculiar priest, this set apart nation, this peculiar holy priesthood, and this peculiar people? Why is this? When you ask, then you shall say to him, by strength of hand of Yahuwah, Yahuwah brought us out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Mm.
Hallelujah.
So, last slide. Keep all of this in mind as we look into this parsha. We will see how all of the things in the generations will come to the surface in this story. Genesis 27 verse 1, and it came to be, this is just a kind of a preview to next part. And it came to be when Isaac was old and his eyes were too dim to see, that he called Esau, his elder son, and said to him, my son, Beni. And he answered him, here I am, Hineni. Hmm. Now notice that this is the same phrase, here I am, that we saw in previous partios. Notice that we are made aware that Isaac could not see and that his eyes were dim. Now, this is in contrast to usually the blessing is that what? Moses, when you can go down the list. So they still had all their faculties and they still had their sight. They still could see just as well as they could back then. They still can see now. Their eyes hadn't gone dim. But with Isaac, we seeing Isaac's eyes went dim, and we gonna see that it's something. There's a little bit more that's going on than what meets the eye. No pun intended. It's a little bit more than what meets the eye with what's going on here with Isaac. So just something in the generation for us to look at. All praises. So notice that we are made aware that Isaac could not see and that his eyes were dim. We know that this speaks of his physical blindness, but is there something that he was blind to in a spiritual sense, perhaps about Esau, his son? And really, we gonna when we start digging into it, we gonna see. I think we touch on it just a little bit here, but it's we gonna see that it's something that he don't see in Esau because of something that maybe is going on with him, right? So Genesis 25:27, it says, and the boys grew up, and Esau became a man knowing how to hunt, a man of the field. Uh-oh. While Jacob was a complete man or upright man, dwelling in tents. Hmm. And Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his wild game. So we get a reason of why Isaac had he favored Esau. But Rivka loved Jacob. So just something to ponder. Could it be that Isaac's natural affinity towards Esau, perhaps because of his own natural appetite, his firstborn and eldest son, according to the natural order, may have blinded him? Right. So basically, I worded that terribly. But basically, what I'm getting at is there something going on with his own appetite that causes him to look at Esau the way that he looks at Esau from a natural sense? And is that what we're seeing with this blindness and how we're going to see how the blindness plays out in the rest of the story?
So you mean like, is it something that Isaac desires, but he's living vicariously through Esau? Or is that like what you're speaking to, maybe?
I won't say necessarily living vicariously through. I think that there's a commonality there between the two. There's a common
Oh,
thread
okay.
between the two. Because remember, we're
Oh,
talking about we we talking about generation. So we're gonna see that there's something in Yaakov that that didn't come from Isaac, that came from Rivka, that came from his mama.
yeah.
We're gonna see how this is gonna play out, and then there's some things about Esau that huh
Yeah, because in
is
the other Parsha, we were talking about it a little bit. Okay.
like even when we think about just we just look at Isaac as a whole, it's not to say that he was unrighteous. That's not what we getting at, right? No stretch of the imagination. That's not what I'm getting at. But what I am saying is that you can look at these generations and you can see how just like with Eli, right? Like Eli, it wasn't that Eli was unrighteous, but we are given a detail that, and he was a large man. So he didn't, yeah, he didn't, it wasn't that, yeah, it wasn't that he was a transgressor per se. Like, no, it was his right to eat of he wasn't doing what his sons was doing. However, not all things are expedient just because they're lawful. You didn't have some self-control somewhere, and then they took that and then it got amplified in them. And the little bit of self-control that you did have to say, this is the line. I'm not gonna cross against the most high with that though. But everything that is lawful, boy, I'm gonna take full advantage of it. Like that's what we kind of is being insinuated with Eli. Then, but with his sons, we see, oh nah, they don't have that. So yeah, like if you look at Eli, like nah, he. When it came to tell me, what did he say? Well, very well. That's what he said. That's what he said. Like he's a man that understands the Most High. Nah, go back in there and tell him X, Y, Z. We see him being quick to correct other folk outside of his house. You drunk woman, what you? So he knows and has an understanding of righteousness, but he got some loose ends somewhere. He a little rough around the edges in some places. He's a little unrefined. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that was the thing. That's why he got judged the way he did. Like, it's nothing for Yahuwah to give you new sons. But if you see a thief and you in agreement with him, you're gonna pay the consequence of that thief.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason your heart is swayed.
Mm-hmm.
It says a gift blinds the heart.
Mm-hmm.
If your child is more important to you than your creator, you might perish with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yeah, certainly it's something that is something to think about in generations, right? Isaac is the type of individual. It's kind of what we seeing is when the rubber meets the road and it's time for him to do the right thing, he'll do the right thing. But sometimes he gets sidetracked, and sometimes he do his own thing. Like we do see that with the wells and the situation with the whole like when he was getting, and the father had is increasing him, and he living high on the hog. He ain't thinking nothing about moving a certain like it wasn't that it was anything wrong with how he was moving, and yeah, those were your daddy's wells. But did that mean that it was expedient for you to be moving like that in this land? Nah. And if you just tone that back a little bit and have a little bit of self-control and a little bit of self-awareness, things can go a little bit smoother for you. Now we see again, we seeing the same thing. Then we see, similar circumstance when he's in the land and Abimelech is like, nah, that ain't your sister. And like we said, now you just flat out in the open. I done looked down and I done seen something that I wasn't supposed my eyes shouldn't have been privy to. That part. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So somewhere in there, what we are seeing is not that there isn't, like you said, not that there's anything wrong with it. It ain't like he was. He probably because also you got to think that the king is going to be in an elevated place, right? So it ain't like he just doing it just flat out in the out in the open and out in. But at the same time, you ain't got enough common sense and enough thought in the moment to be like, but not here. Still, even though yeah, we ducked off, we ain't ducked off. You just caught up in a moment, right? So it's not that it was like he went flat out in the air. He just out in the open, just raw dogging. Nah, that's not quite what's going on, right? Like there's a movie that comes to mind that I'm going to not quote, but yeah, TV pollution. But yeah, that ain't what was going on. But at the same time, Abimelech being elevated is able to look over and able to see from a elevated place. He see the whole city, and you just, but still, you out here though. You think you ducked off, but you ain't. Yeah, you think you ducked off, but you ain't ducked off. But a man of self control, and he gonna think even that deeper step ahead. Whereas we seeing that Isaac, maybe when he want to do what he want to do, he kind of, he gonna be a little rough around the edges. Same reason, perhaps why his daddy is like, no, you go get a wife for him. And matter of fact, don't let whatever you do, don't let him come back because if he do, is a likelihood that he might get a little sidetracked. So, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, And then we see kind of similar things going on, but it gets amplified and like to the next degree with Esau, right? Like Esau, same thing. And then we see that after he saw, this grieved my mother and my father. All right, let me go. At least I can at least go back to Unc and take a woman from his house. Right? I won't deal with the Canaanites no more. We see that he at least has, even though he want to do what he want to do, he at least still has the consciousness to say, I'm not gonna kill you while my daddy is still alive. Mm-hmm. 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 But when he gone, I'm gonna do what I want. Right? So like we see, mm-hmm. But then we also see he does have a capacity for, to some degree, right? Of, you know what? Don't worry about it, bro. It's all told. Don't worry about it. How long that would have lasted, who knows? But it was there, right? So Esau is not 100% bad. As a matter of fact, in this story, he's the one being taken advantage of. Like, flat out, hands down. I know that us in hindsight is 2020, and yeah, that's a convenient argument to say they did, but no, that's really not what we're supposed to be getting from the story. Like, nah, these two come from the same two individuals and the same that's in their generations. They shared. They were twins and they shared the womb, right? So, but there was, however, still something about him that we see. It's amplified. Isaac is able to put the brakes on and say, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm at your mercy, Most High. And finally, we got a place that we didn't have to strive or fight over. Now I'm going to build the altar. That wasn't his first inclination, but he got there. You see, with Esau, it's kind of like, what good is the birthright to me? It's a little amplified that I'm going to do what I want and I can get it on my own. That I'm going to get it on my own. No, that's Isaac. That's Isaac. That's why he's fighting and wrestling with these people in the land. That's my daddy's well. That's my. I know what I'm gonna do. Go over there and my men, we gonna dig it up again. Not yeah. Like he a little rough around the edges. That's why he likes Esau. Jacob, on the other hand, is a little more passive. Yeah, he's a little more, he'll let a situation happen to him. How do you get into you go and you end up being taken advantage of the way that he got taken advantage of? Because he's passive. He doesn't deal with confrontation well. Even so much so to the point we're gonna see where what does he do? Instead of dealing with Laban and saying, hey, XYZ, boom, 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 he just dipped. He just disappeared. It was like, because that's how much he does not want to deal with conflict and confrontation. He does not want to go back and deal with Esau. He's very passive. So you're gonna see how it's just certain things that's in these generations, and certain things is gonna have to be overcome in order for him to be able to not just be that wandering air man that's lost, but to be elevated in covenant with the Father.
To see, like, just looking at Jasher, you know that gear's in him, but like you said, because he's passive, that's not his first choice. Whereas Esau is like, I'm always at 100. I wish it would.
Mm-hmm.
And Isaac like, yeah. So I be trying to tell your granddad.
Uh-huh.
But it makes sense though too because that
All praises.
I forgot just that quick what I was going to say.
Mm.
It'll come back if it's important. All praises.
All praises.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. It goes
Wait.
it goes right back to the very beginning of the lesson where we were talking about it. Literally, it says from the beginning. He calls the end from the beginning. Two manners of men are in your womb.
Mm-hmm.
Two mannerisms of men, not two different races. No,
Mm-hmm.
they were twins,
Mm-hmm.
looked exactly the same, or they could have been fraternal, whatever, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
By all accounts.
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
still twins. Their behaviors were different, their mannerisms is different. And we see in this story, when we do dig a little bit deeper, how and for let us try to act like we can't see it nowadays, we'll be telling a lie. How can two people come from the same parents but have completely different outlooks, behave, whatever it is? This is how. Because one gonna take after one and amplify these things in them. Another might take after another, amplify those things. And if you got even more siblings than that, y'all each gonna have a different ratio or dispensation of attributes that you have inherited from your parents. And that's how you have, for I got three brothers. That's how we all different. And we don't even have the same, we got to, so we all have the same mom. We don't have the same father, Well, I don't have the same, but still you had like, that's how you could come from the same house and just be like way completely different. That's so, I mean, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then is that classic case of nature and nurture and how the two come together. So you're gonna see that we get that detail earlier in Genesis 25 that one takes after one and like, but then you also gonna see how both parents are also nurturing that thing that's in them, right?
Yeah.
Whatever that is that I like about you that reminds you of me, I'm also nurturing that as well. Like we gonna see Isaac with Esau. Hey boy, come over here and get me that. You know that venison that I like. You know how I like it. Go ahead, go out there and get that. You know how we do. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But is that always told though to nurture that? Is the question.
Oh, no, a whole nother question. That's a whole nother rabbit
Because
hole.
it's
Mm-hmm.
like you can be sympathetic to something, but it's not really told in you.
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta
There we go.
you gotta question that
There we go.
within yourself.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Exactly where we have to be careful and honest with what Yahuwah is showing us is in us as we raise the next generation. Because we can be overlooking something that he's looking to cancel out, whether it's in us or outside of us.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. Well, all praises. It's like excellent point. Cause yeah, that's what we're gonna see. Is is something that perhaps Isaac is, encouraging just a little bit. But then we're gonna see how later on all of this behavior is gonna be the summation of his own headache. Because it's like now he gonna be looking and it's like these women that Esau got, it's a headache. Now boy, I ain't never done. You ain't never seen me do that now. But it's like all of the other stuff though, you kind of encourage me to be wild out in the field and doing this, that, and the third. And I go out there and I hunt with these folks and I do all this, that, and the third. What you think was gonna happen? And it's like, well, no, hold on now, wait a minute. I ain't never tell you to do that. Your mama ain't nothing like that. And it's like, mm, mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. And then you're gonna see with the same thing with Rivka, where she's gonna say, "Oh, this is a headache now, because now my one son want to kill the other one, and it's a heartache to me. I gotta send him away. You gonna have to go over there with my brother, and this and the third. All of this stuff, all based off of what I encouraged you to do. So you're gonna see how it's all of this stuff, But again, that difference with Isaac is he gonna recognize real at the end of the day. I done said what I said, and what else could I do? It is what it is. I mean, hey, you know. So yeah, it's just interesting, but yep, that'd be for the next one.
Oh,
All praises. Yep, that's all I got.
All praises.
Excellent lesson.
All praises.
Definitely some told meditations, especially for the time that we're in and looking ahead, trying to prepare our minds. Excellent.
Absolutely. We definitely appreciate every time you bring out a Torah portion. It's told. It's
All
absolutely
praises.
told. So, and it's necessary. Like you said, at this time, yeah, absolutely
All
necessary for
praises.
such time as this. So, y'all are, yeah, all praises. We definitely appreciate it. Um, and if that's it, if that's everything, then I'm going to go ahead and say, may the Most High keep us. May He shine His face on us. May He hear us in our distress. May He make us exponentially more than we are, maybe for our tov and not for our evil. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom. All praises.